Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today's a longer video than usual, and it's brought by my favorite long-term sponsor, Manscaped.com. Now we all know that they make the all-in-one manscaping kit, but this video is brought to you by the Perfect Package 3.0, which comes chock with the Lawnmower 3.0 anti-water resistant body trimmer. I mean seriously, this thing's got skin-safe technology. I used to be scared of cutting and bruising my balls, but now I can just put this on the tip and I don't even have to worry about it. I mean, I'm serious, this thing is like straight raw dogging me. But you know, the best part is after I'm done shaving the nuts, I gotta make them smell nice with their Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver, because trust me, it does get sweaty down there. You also get 2 free gifts if you get this. You get the Shed Travel Bag to roam around in style with your goodies, but you also get the anti-chafing boxer briefs, and these things are really cool. I mean, imagine missing out on crop cooling technology so you can lounge around your house, not with your balls hanging out, but with your balls nice and chilly. It also has Contour Flex material, so again, your balls get to hang around and breathe and repel some of that juicy moisture. And if you pair it with that crop preserver, I mean, God, your balls are ready for everything. This is like luxury nut shaving technology. So ladies and gentlemen, if you also get this, you can get the Peak Hygiene Plan, so they give you more boxer replacements every cycle. And if you use code SOMEORDINARY right now, you can get 20% off and free international shipping with 2 free gifts. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, your balls will thank you. Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. Before we begin, I just want to put a little disclaimer and say if I sound a little sick, it's because I am. I have a little bit of a flu going on, hopefully nothing worse. But with all of that said though, I wanted to record this video because I think I may have stumbled upon something that has been buried in the ethos of time. You know, if you look at something like 4chan, which is a giant image board where people have so many misconceptions of, and there's been a lot of memes that have come out of there, a lot of history on the internet has sort of come out of 4chan. But what if I told you there was once a cult infiltration of a 4chan group that caused certain members to actually be hospitalized? I myself don't believe it and still don't believe it. It all feels surreal to me. So sit back, relax, and let's go down a rabbit hole of 4chan epicness. So sit back, relax, and let's look at the voices of X. The first stop on our 4chan adventure takes us to the very first thread, the Voices of X in 2012. I want to remind people that this is, I think, before my channel was even created, so this is a thread that's basically been lost to time. I mean, this was a point where I think 4chan wasn't even being properly auto-archived. Any experiences of perceiving meaning in the environment or possible communications from unknown entities through an interpretation of the physical world. Terence McKenna once said that everything is language, and this complex language is what one perceives while using LSD. Oh yeah? The Australian Aboriginal people read stories from the marks and grooves in rock, and have been doing so for millions of years. They are able to read the marks in the rock just as we read the letters on a page. Throughout fiction, we create a wealth of meaning and metaphor that is rich and complex. The modern meme is yet another example of how easily language can be born once understands the basic principle or foundations of a certain language. So over here, I want you to remember the term synchronicity, because this is what it's all about, okay? Synchronicity, all right, if we're going to look at the exact Wikipedia definition of it, right, was a concept first introduced by analytical psychologist Carl Jung, which holds that events are meaningful coincidences if they occur with no causal relationship yet seem to be meaningfully related. So what's going on over here is 4chan is about to sit down and write a journal communally about their synchronicity experiences. Now, long story short, what eventually happened was these people started off with pretty simple synchronicity experiences. You know, something like what happened at a gym, right? A song playing over and over and over again at the same time on multiple different platforms. It was through later weeks and months that have passed where individuals started actually having synchronicity dreams or moments which were much darker than usual, points where things like killing and assaults were a commonplace, right? And it was at this point, all right, that these fucking threads ended up becoming more and more group therapy sessions than there were actually people sharing their fucking experiences. This is one of the threads in 2012 as well. This is the last Voices of X thread that I'm going to be running. Thank you for all your stories, X. I am now the belief that synchronicity is nothing more than the beginning of psychosis. Nothing that I have discovered has gotten me to any form of understanding or enlightenment, and I feel like I am starting to lose my mind overthinking ordinary things and overanalyzing the meaning of everything around me. Also, where I was previously convinced that synchronicity was the only visible force of enlightenment in the world, I have now become convinced that if indeed there is anything to it other than a kind of madness, then I would have to be a sinister or malevolent presence rather than a benevolent or loving entity because of the pointless and horrible trails that they lead to. If anybody wants to take over this thread, then you are more than welcome. Of course, you've got 4chan memeing about taking a statistics course and people who want to save the Voices of X, but very quickly, I want you to keep something in your subconscious throughout the entire video, is these 3x3 picture threats that you're seeing over and over again. These posts are the most important, because this signifies at least to the first belief that there was a cult infiltration. What cult? Well, we call it the cult of Saturn. Now, how do you think we get to this cult? Alright, how do you think we got to that point? Now, while we cover that first part just fine, and anybody can dig up those images from the Voices of X, this is where the meat of the video is coming out from, right? The above picture was created to illustrate a scary poem created by a girl named Lucy. It's part of a weird story about a crazy cult operating online who formed as an offshoot of the anonymous movement around 2009. The excerpt below refers to a book mentioned by one of the members of the cult, an extremely rare occult book, often referred to it by its many seekers as the Book of Loki, or the Book of Lucifer. Alright, now here they mention a link, alright, tarahasharo.hubpages.com, hub Trail of Deceit. Alright, let's go down to the Trail of Deceit and actually get down to the meat and potatoes of this. Now, Trail of Deceit, this is where we're going to be analyzing everything. This is a post in 2015 by Tara Arasho, alright? Now, in this post, we're going to start off with, I joined a group called the Cult of Saturn in about 2010. One of the more disturbing groups in modern time, and who few are probably familiar with. They worship the planet Saturn. This is not some conspiracy theory about a fictional group either. I'm talking about a real group of people who I have met, an actual cult, teaming up with a more internet-savvy friend, thanks Rich, to publish my own experiences as well as archive all the information I have. And we can find about this group and their activities, part self-confession and part expose. There's a lot of information here, but some really disturbing and interesting stuff. I urge you to read it all and spread the info around. Let me just say that it gets really weird, and it does. About me, I work and live in London, raised in the north and born in Nairobi. My dad is from Kenya originally, my mum is from South Africa. I moved to North London when I was about 16. I got in with the wrong sort of crowd whilst living in northeast London. A bunch of guys and gals who were into ketamine, and I lost touch with reality for a while. Rich, the tech friend, is from Australia and has done his own internet research on this. We met through a mutual friend online and have come together to work on this project. So this leads us to a multiple page part situation with a lot of actual sources that have been listed, threads that have been created by the cult of Saturn and whatnot. I'm going to open some of these pages and it's going to kind of hit you like a truck. My story starts when I met a guy named Christian McManus. Christian was this lovely confused rebel type of guy who left a trail of angry girlfriends behind him. I think we had mutual friends and I wound up at a party in Finsbury Park that he was at. We dated for a bit, I guess you could call it that, slept together a few times and sort of hung out drunk. He was in a few grunge bands, and half connected to the punk scene, half connected to the hipster scene in East London. We used to hang around thrift shops drunk in the middle of the afternoon, and he would tell me how drugs had the power to open up your third eye. You ever hear about the pineal gland stuff? This is what they're getting into. And how all human affairs were linked to the planets and the stars, and how every culture had this archetype linked to the planet Saturn, and the symbolism of death and divorce as an essential part of life. I found it interesting. He never seemed like too much of a whack job. I should have known something was up with him back then, I guess, but he was my initial into this group who I became connected with, the start of the weirdness. Some of the warehouse parties I would hang out with these guys. A lot of people recognizable in the story here are Christian, Frank, Lucy, Daniel. Faces obscured because I don't want to incriminate in social media. So I'm going to obscure everyone's face as much as I can. But this is just basically a party that's going on in London, right? It kind of looks like a fucking rave. Now here you got Richard saying, below is one of the major sources of this conspiracy on the internet forums. There is a load of buzz on various social media feeds like Twitter and Facebook, but this pretty much explains the origins of the mystery surrounding the event, which saw an advertisement for idle hands turn into a witch hunt and the paranoid episode across London, Europe, and the world. So this takes us to an ATS forum post, right? If you remember ATS, it was from our Deep Web episodes, the above top secret forums, and here they talk about the London Antichrist urban legend. Have you ever heard the legend that you can contact an Illuminati agent Antichrist figure named Frank at the address falseprophet@live.com.au? Well, I used to know the true origins of the urban legend. It's a legend that I based my username on, and the thing that got me interested in conspiracies in the first place. It's an old conspiracy now, and I'm not sure how many of you have heard it, but I hope you enjoy it if you haven't. I'll start off and explain that I was born and raised in London, England. Roughly 5 years ago, there was a job posted in an English production jobs website called Mandy.com, with the subject line that read, "Idle hands wanted for mysterious job," or something to that effect. The job ad was quite vague, but basically outlined that a new magazine called The False Prophet was opening and they were looking for creatives of all varieties. Anyone who has worked in the creative and production industry or as a writer will know how competitive the industry is and how difficult it can be to find hard work. So, given that this was a paying job, you won't be surprised to hear that a great proportion of the population of the London creative industry sent their resume to the email provided, falseprophet@live.com.au. The contact on the posting was for someone called Frank. A few months after the ad was posted, rumors started circulating through chat rooms and blogs that people had experienced strange things whilst being recruited for the job. Applicants were allegedly put through unorthodox methods of recruitment. They received cryptic messages, and their responses were often sent to other applicants, creating a strange scenario where applicants were in direct contact with each other without actually meeting the other person, or the recruiter. Whilst I can't attest to the truth of the large population of the latter rumors, I can state certainly the fact that A, the job ad existed, because a friend of mine who is an illustrator applied for the job, and B, it's true that there was at least some form of pranking happening in relation to the ad, because my friend was put through some strange ordeals himself. Through rumors, the story gained its own level of embellishment, and it's certainly that many stories were fabricated or hoaxes, so the line between what actually happened and what is fictional remains unknown. My friend was told to write a slanderous review about other applicants' work, and then received a slanderous review from another applicant about his work. Then he was given the contact details of the applicant and told to ring him up and destroy him psychologically if he wanted to get the job. This is where my friend opted out of the process because he found it too disturbing. But the story spread amongst Shoreditch trendies on blogs and on Facebook claimed that some people were called out to interviews at strange hours. So we're going to stop checking it out here, but I want to just say for the record, this hiring process is not only ethically damning, but I also believe that it may actually be illegal where it's taking place in, but we're going to stop right over here because it's not really that important to dive into. This is the ATS post, and it covers this weird organization, right? This weird, like, idle hands job posting. So let's go back to page 2, which is the book. I probably need to spend a little time to explain 2012 to anyone who missed out on that. The world was supposed to end in 2012, according to the Mayan calendar prophecy. You have to look it up, but it's relevant to this whole story because it may help explain some of the hype going on at the time on the internet forums and the like. Something like this could only really thrive in the environment at that particular time. If you forgot the 2012, the world was supposed to end, fuck, there were movies that people made about it at the time that were as bad as you could fucking expect. Now here's a forum post where people are talking about the lucid dreams and how they're having them, like an increased amount of them at that point in time. Tara says, I was spiritually searching a lot because this time for something myself. My parents came into this tribal background and they converted to Christianity when they had me and my brother. They latched onto their Bible belief pretty heavily, and there is this one true book, and you have to live your life exactly by these commandments or you go to hell. And so on. I found it really foreign and stupid. It neither fit with my African heritage nor with my life in multicultural London. The complexity of the city I was born into and the people who I was friends with. I was searching for something so simplistic in its meaning as my parents' biblical truths, which would simultaneously address the complexity of modern life. I could relate to punks. The music was all about this rebelling from middle-class Christian parents culture and fuck you Jesus, Satan is great. It was so in your face and where I was at. It helped to liberate me from the face my parents had instilled in me and feel part of a collective. A really close friend, Lucy, Lucy, I met through Christian, became my closest confidant. She was lots of fun, and I admired her courageous spirit and strength of characters. Also her ability to maintain a kind of power even amidst wild groups of horny tween and adolescent boys. She used to recommend to me all these books to read, Kerouac and Hunter Thompson, Burroughs, and all the other authors that a fun-loving, druggy, and sexually experimenting 20-something comes to admire. I wasn't until years later that the Christian paranoia instilled by my parents started creeping back into my life. Christian used to trip out on ketamine sometimes, and he would just lie on his back almost catatonic and say to me, Tara, you need to find the book of the key and the lock. So where do you think the book of the key of the lock was? Well, all the way down into fucking 4chan, apparently. Where does one find the book and the key or the lock, or the book of Loki, the book of Lucifer? To which, of course, 4chan outright says, in the magical land of Google. Never change. Never change, X. Never fucking change. Now, of course, Tara says it didn't take him seriously, of course. At the time, however, a couple of years later, I would be searching for this book everywhere. There are a lot of really crazy libraries in England, and if you can't find a book here, there tends to be something amiss. But I can tell you this book is not in stock in any library in the world, and I've searched for it everywhere. And apparently this is the only page that is claimed to be from the Book of Loki or the Book of Lucifer, which is apparently an etching of William Blake's Death's Door. Of course, Rich decided to hunt this book down and ended up finding like some user in Reddit who apparently claims he has a copy of the book and posted this exact image. Of course, it could all be complete bullshit. It probably is because it's a Redditor. And then you go down and forward and then you find these 4chan posts, which I guess are pages from this entire situation. Again, these are 2012, right back in there for it. So let's go to part 3. Now, the first part of this involves an image with a man and a woman sitting upon top of a Ouija board, right? We all know what Ouija boards are about, but Tara likes to tell us things get a bit confusing here. That's if you're not confused already. Lol. It's all just a big clusterfuck of insanity. My mind boggles a little to think back on it all. It's just going to hop around randomly from events because it's too difficult to put it all together in a perfect linear order. Hopefully you're a better reader than I am a writer, and you can understand my wayward rambling. One of the key things I remember from hanging around Christian and some of the other friends, punks and goths mainly, one day we all did this Ouija board together, about 10 of us. I remember my brother always warned the Ouija board, Tara, and you never use it, it's the devil's game. Lol. It's all just seemed stupid, but a bit of fun, I guess. Nobody expected anything to happen at all, of course. Even when it did, we all suspected that somebody was just fucking with the rest of us, moving the piece around and spelling things out. A lot of what was spelled out was gibberish. I thought maybe because the creep doing it was having trouble making everyone's hands get the letter he wanted. I remember it said to be Frank at one point, which was weird because it hadn't been introduced to Frank Webster at the point. It seemed that meant nothing at the time, but somehow that stuck with me. Anyways, we spent a lot of time trying out to bad boy each other. Come down, Satan, we summon thee. Come forth, demon, and that sort of shit. Something in the room was shifted around, but we knew it was just somebody throwing things around to scare us. I just don't know why I think that was relevant to the whole story, or even if it was at all, but it just popped into my head. God, I remember going around the Matt's place. It was one of the warehouses in the community. I remember the green carpet and the shelf with all the flower pots, the messy kitchen, and the clothesline in the backyard. I spent so much time there. Not all of my memories are bad after all. Some of them I'm quite fond of. Of course, it goes down to where Richard shows us about this Reddit post, which you can find easily around the internet. This is from No Sleep, but it's also from like R4chan or whatever, where the 4chan journal that sent people insane, where they talked about the voices of X and whatnot. Again, I'm going to skip down where they mention things like they made a human Ouija board. Richard said, it's like they made an online Ouija board. That's really creepy, Tara, especially seeing as how you just thought of that Ouija anecdote. Tara's like, Rich, don't even, you're creeping me out. Of course, this takes us to the next several threads, alright? What is X/Vox? A proposition just devised another thread for an open journal in which members of X may record their everyday experiences of synchronicity, psychedelic experiences, and any other experiences related to the riddle box of life, either live on the forum or remembered from previous experience of synchronicity, or reiterated from the members' own personal synchronicity journals. The purpose? To study and analyze the phenomenon of synchronicity using scientific methods and create theories as to what synchronicity really is. Join me now. Carve your story on the blank slate of R/Vox, roughly translated to the voices of X. Again, innocent fucking beginnings, right? Before they all went crazy. This journal seems to have gone through a few different incarnations, of course, different posts, right? From 2011, 2012, and 2014. Of course, they mentioned the symbol called host, right? Of course, it's like web things put together, I guess, if you want to fucking say it. From what I can gather, these are the symbols which stood out for the individuals in the first wave of the journal. Part of the sentence that was allegedly spelled out, the ghost in the machine points to the false prophet. False prophet? Remember that in your fucking heads, kiddos. What is with this black lab stuff, Tara? You know anything about it? It is related to COS. No, I've never heard of it. Okay, just mad conspiracy nuts then. People just join the dots in everything. But what do you think about the first stuff I sent to you, Tara? Is this Voices of X journal relevant to the Cult of Saturn or the Book of Loki stuff? Of course, these are interesting snippets from the archive where 4chaners start mentioning things like Black Lab, which is again a government psyop, I guess what they think, to experiment with the effects of synchronicities as a tool in mind control. Research a company called Black Lab. Ask yourself the following. Have you ordered anything over the internet in the last year? Does the ordering of any item coincide with the start point of the synchronicities? Well, let's look at what Black Lab is. Well, that is definitely a cute dog, but I'm gonna look up the company. Maybe I can dig it out here. No, there's plenty of Black Lab organizations. I doubt that Black Lab Brewing has anything to fucking do with what we're looking at, right? A CIA insider suggests, okay, 4chan. The CIA insider on 4chan right now? Get out of here! Page 4 and 5, the mythology surrounding the cult, part 1 and part 2. So let's go into the mythology around this cult. I can't really say if this Voices of X is related to the Cult of Saturn or not. Well, I can't say for certain, but this is interesting. There's more mentions of ghosts in this. Here's some weird H.P. Lovecraft connection. Also, someone else is interesting coming up with this thread. A girl from the X Library, who I found mentioning the Book of Lock and Key. So again, it goes down to this thread, which I actually have seen myself. Now, here they mention, let's keep this going, should we create a new sigil? Again, they start mentioning the very rare Book of Loki. Alright, and then now over here with Box's the profile picture, I've just now ironed out about all the creases that link COS with Vox, and the false flag chat is serving the purpose. Attila? No, never heard the name. She might be one from the online manifestation of the Cult of Saturn. Okay man, cubes come up a lot, but more of this Black Lab conspiracy shit linked to cubes, and also the message, the ghost in the machine points to the false prophet. We keep seeing the word false prophet again. Hopefully it leads to something. Now, this is where Anonymous posts in an open letter to the curious, your government conceals vast amount of information from you, the public, while simultaneously actively monitoring every aspect of your life. As a defector from the CIA, I'm sure you're on 4chan, I am risking everything a human being values by making this open report to the free thinkers of the world. A small price to pay for easing my conscience. I am writing you from a leaky storeroom in Diego Garcia, 3 short blocks from here in a large warehouse, stripped of its paint and panels and hollowed out of its original upholstery. In mechanics, in flight is flight MH370, the so-called missing flight from Malaysian Airlines. You remember that shit? That's a while back, goddammit! And I'm about to disclose involves the creators of the Georgia Guidestones, military experiments, technology that could change the world kept in the dark, and perhaps most importantly, the simple message of hope or fear. One of the greater riddles of life answered, straight up, no chaser. We are not alone in the universe. Now, to summarize this thread, so to speak, they basically expose the data centers, and they start talking about systems like PRISM. If you remember PRISM from virus investigations, Edward Snowden basically leaked the PRISM system to the public and showed a giant mass surveillance system in the United States. This post is a coverage of all of that, but somehow linking it to synchronicity. Now's probably a right time to join dots. The experiment will no doubt be similar to what you can imagine. Something similar in scope to other mind control projects you've probably heard mentioned. MK Ultra, Project Monarch, the main focus was on stimulating the experience of synchronicity to create a sense of belief in magical thinking in order to manipulate the thoughts and actions of members of the public. I'm sure you saw the recent EEG experiments of email transfer from brain to brain that was allowed into the public sphere. Rest assured, military research and technology in the matter is a much higher stage than this. Through manipulation of electro-impulse technology has reached pretty sophisticated levels, but this is largely irrelevant. What might be more interesting to you about these experiments is that these very men who created a deep synchronous manipulation of the mental sphere were at the same time conducting their own experimentations in following synchronous moments of their own, and creating devices to store and calculate them, even communing with spirits and alien beings. What the fuck? You tell me there's like military black projects and talking to spirits and alien beings through like the synchronicity nonsense? Well, it keeps continuing, so let's go down even further. It was wrong of me to suggest that the cube was only a modern occult symbol. Actually, it is as old as time immemorial. The Masons didn't venerable the cube, but it was quite literally the cornerstone of their philosophy. Needless to say, the stone bricks were the trades of the Masons. They built their philosophy around it, but focused the ritual and art on just about everything else. Again, I assume that's related to an entire giant cube, right? But again, if we want to go back to the company Black Lab that we were just looking up, one other incident which may or may not be relevant, the company Black Lab, which may or may not have ties with Blackstone, was involved in another incident which was investigated by the CIA. It involved a mass attack of paranoia in Wellington, New Zealand, and Perth, Australia. The mass hysteria caused is the form of a rash and individual psychosis in December 2013 to February 2014, and went largely unreported in the press. Just an upsurge of psychosis reported in the mental hospitals in these states. There was a common link found between all the cases investigated by a colleague of a colleague. Tiki and tribal artifacts were found in all of the victims' houses. Further research indicates that all the products were brought online in the last 6 months. Tracking of the suppliers led back to the Black Lab company. Again, I just want to say green text here. CIA defector leaking government secrets. Post their exact location on 4chan. Yeah, pretty fucking hard to believe this person when they're this stupid, right? Now, Taryn writes, cubes. Huh. Maybe it's starting to sound like some stuff that the cult would have been part in, making up or spreading around, definitely. Christian had a big painting of Metatron's cube on his wall. He always used to go on about it, how it was the key to understanding the universe or some shit. Too much ketamine, Chris. Lol. Oh man, this takes me back though. Ketamine is a weird drug. Yeah, I can tell from personal experience. Supposedly it just tranquilizes you, right? But there was something about that half-dream state. Seemed like anything was possible, and when you came to, it was like you weren't sure where the dream had started and reality had ended. It had some really bad effects on people, though. There was this guy called Jimmy who started taking it every day. We used to call him the ghost of Jimmy because he would just knock on the door with white powder all over his face, pale as a ghost, and not saying anything high as fuck. Had to get hospitalized in the end. Daniel got stuck in the K-hole and never really got back. So sad. Then there was... She went absolutely crazy one time she took it. She would just lay there and scream, just screamed all night, and she said nothing for about a week, except for the occasional screams at night. It was a small community with about 15 warehouses, all really close together, so everybody in the place heard those screams. Every night, dark times. I finally got the chance to speak to her about what happened a couple of months later. She said she had a hallucination of this ghost-like monster, like a cloud made of eyeballs and tubes, and it stuck a slimy appendage inside her fucking brain. This almost sounds like a biblically accurate angel, Sarah. Jesus Christ. Now, interestingly, Richard posts this Daily Mail Australia article. Mysterious Chinese blogger sparks online frenzy after predicting that Black Hand was going to bring down Air Asia jet 13 days before one vanished. You know, honestly, I could probably see these articles over and over again from fucking Daily Mail about any goddamn conspiracy. Isn't it like the same group of newspapers that pretty much talk about World War III, upcoming release date, pre-order now? Like, what the fuck? I've been following these threads. I've had multiple syncs since I've entered ghost mode. I've had another one do a disappearance of Air Asia flight QZ8501. My cash box had a serial number on it which starts with QZ. I was using it when I found out about the plane disappearing on the news. Then later I was paying a phone bill and noticed that my account number 8501 in it. Really creepy. Yeah, that's a bit of a stark coincidence, right? Jesus Christ. The same number in your account history belonging to Air Asia flight QZ that went missing? That's a weird sort of sync, I'll tell you right now. But again, you can tell this is how things get darker, right? It starts off pretty humble and normal to points where you're syncing things up with missing airlines. Tara, was Christian involved in the online stuff, like creating fake forum posts and the like? So this is where now we lead up to all of this, right? Where did they infiltrate 4chan? I really have no idea. We lost contact because most of your research is dated, so he could have been. He was really obsessed by cubes. There was one other time when we were all high, and I remember him saying to me, "We are inside a cube. Don't you get it?" Must have been really fucking on ketamine there, Jesus Christ. There was really paranoid time for all of us. Paranoia kind of spread to everyone who was tripping, and we ended up running around trying to make sure everyone was okay. There was this kind of panopticon thing, where the guys had set up CCTV cameras and projectors in all the warehouses, and we could all see what was happening in the different warehouses. It was fucking trippy as balls when you were in a K-hole. And this one time, nobody knew where Lucy was, but she wrote this message in one of the walls in lipstick, which we thought was blood. Can't find me, love Lucy. She turned up to be on the roof. Lucy, Lucy, Lucy. Lucy introduced me to the cult for the first time. I knew that everyone in the place were into the occult, and pretty eccentric and what have you, but it hadn't occurred to me to put it all together. I mean, I could have noticed that there was something strange under the surface. All these people living in this community, sleeping with each other, and all the weird religious babble. I should have known it was a cult. Lucy took me down to Building 3 one night. No one ever went in there. I thought it was empty. But she opens the door, and it's half lit, full of all those weird painted symbols. Looked like a student had invented a religion and built a shrine and a temple. There was a group of 5 people in a balaclavas on the table. One with a fedora, my lady, and some with other assorted hats. I was introduced to Frank for the first time. He was kind of charming, but in an obvious, crazy way. Like, you could tell there was some sort of slightly sociopathic about him. Like, if you stare too long at Kurt Cobain or John Lennon and you realize that there is some inbuilt arrogance, some madness in them to believe that they can actually change the world. For real. If it wasn't for Lucy, the cult probably would have just been a small, inbred creative group who produces monthly zine. I won't show her face out of respect, but here's a photo of Lucy, girl. Still love her. I guess Lucy's sipping on her adult juice. It was easy enough to find Lucy online. She has spammed advertisements for the Cult of Saturn in various places. There is someone calling themselves the Mouth of Truth posting on 4chan who has been accused of being Lucy of Cos 2. Sounds right. Here's the post. Hello, sweet sweet. So far I've given you 4 clues. Have you been paying attention? I hope so. You will remember me, X. I am the Mouth of Truth. Just ask me any question. Trying to get 4chan to play along? Get out of here, girl. What the fuck is wrong with you? The Mouth of Truth? Oh god, lol. That has to be Lucy. She always said things like she had the sexiest lips in Europe. Where was I? So, my first meeting with the cult really just turned out into a group drinking session. Of course it did. By the way, the cult label was self-imposed and mostly ironic. They were taking the mickey out of themselves, but in spite of this, something about the whole thing, the spiritual practices, the sex, and everything else gave it a genuine cult vibe. Again, here's more posts from the Mouth of X, right? And then they started mentioning a character known as Frank. Frank was an okay guy. The core of the cult mostly came across as a bunch of guys wanting to play cowboys and Indians, you know? It was actually fun for the most part. Frank used to send people on these missions whilst we were high. They seemed so comical and purposeless, and we did them because they were fun. Mostly we were just spray painting these symbols on walls around London. There's no doubt that they had some occult value, but no one had any vision or clarity to see beyond small-scale anarchy and having fun. Frank and Lucy were the only visionaries in the cult. We all went down to Occupy in London one time, drunk as fuck. That was a good time. Everyone was talking about politics, and we were all asking everyone if they wanted to join the cult. And here, I guess they're on the Occupy walls. They're on the Occupy London movement. Man, that was popular back in the day. Now we're all just trading GameStop stock and doing way more than those movements ever did, aren't we? You know, guy comes up a lot online. Made this cartoon, Hell's Host. It's part of a new wave false prophet magazine. And again, this is like mentions of it. Hell's Host, Bad Ideas, Animations. Yeah, I met Gwyn. He was weird. He came to Manor House in 2011, I think. Things were already falling apart then. No, he was okay. Part of the new wave. The place got more and more taken over by generic creative types. It was losing the roots of anarchic party cult vibe it had from the start. But yeah, I've seen some conspiracies about Frank not being Frank. And again, I want to remember Frank came up a lot during that initial Ouija board moment way back. I find the whole thing pretty strange. I've never heard of Frank being a pseudonym. We all just knew it as his real name, but I do remember Lucy saying sometimes it would have to make people confused about their names when they went online. Some kind of identity protection thing? Gwyn was the one who did a lot of the murals in the Tewksbury building. He had his own company, Bad Ideas, and Frank got him to paint something for the False Prophet magazine. So again, this is just another secretive side to Frank, and things eventually took a dark turn. What dark turn? Let's figure it out. So this takes us to the Mayan calendar launch. This is where it all went down. God, it's such a surreal trip looking back. I still find it hard to differentiate what's real and what's not. I have this memory clear of day, of walking down the street with Christian after we had just done some lines of ketamine and him saying to me, "Have you walked through into different dimensions yet?" I just looked at him blankly. When he pulled out me into the side alley, it was hard to concentrate when I was so smacked out, but I could see that he was kind of waving his arms around in strange patterns and tapping on the walls. Then my eyes fogged up. The bricks of the wall kind of fell away into the psychedelic goo, and it was like a glitch in a video game. I could see all of this colored space stretching out into infinity. He grabbed my hand and pulled me through. The rest of my experience that night was just a psychedelic trip, floating around in surreal places from movies and films, watching historic civilizations that haven't been built yet. And then me and Christian just kind of avatars in this virtual world of colors and shapes. Of course, the majority of the false prophet hype starts around 2012. This must have been when Frank and Lucy were doing their biggest viral promotions. And this is back when they're on like Unforum, ARGBB. Like, I don't even know these websites, and I've been on the internet for the fucking beginning of time. Let's be fucking real here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, done some preliminary digging and found something interesting. The link contains the musings of a man about life being an alternate reality game. A good old art. The interesting part is that his links underneath this connect this game with the internet horror story about a newspaper called The False Prophet, which can be accessed from the main site. And again, these are more and more posts from Frank and Lucy just socially advertising all of this. It all comes to the head on the night of December 21st, 2012. People are following the countdown from all the world, from Paris to America, Italy to China. Idle Hands wanted for magazine. So you remember way back when we had the job posting, which did some ethically damning things? Yeah, well, this is where it's coming out to. They already ran an ad back in 2008 on Mandy.com, which is when some of the legends popped up about applicants being messed with. But the ad was yet to really go viral globally. So Lucy had this plan to make a new countdown December 21st, 2012. It kind of occupied a lot of people's time and got into the way of many of us relaxing and having fun sometimes. Lucy was really good at getting other people involved, though. Frank seemed impressed with her, but less interested in her physically. The other girl, called Tania, had gotten his attention. He was spending a lot of time with her, obviously sleeping with her, and this was driving Lucy insane with jealousy. It all just came to head one night. I have no idea what happened, but suddenly everything was different. Lucy and Frank, where all the other founders of the cult, seemed more manic than usual. They weren't talking about planning anything anymore. They were just talking about really cryptic stuff, as if they had already completed their plan, and were doing something else entirely. I left a party early one night at a warehouse down the end of the street and saw Lucy and Frank talking to the other end. I followed them in and eavesdropped on the conversation. The conversation was almost impossible to understand, and I thought they were finally losing it from overuse of drugs. Frank was saying things like, "We've opened too many fucking portals. There's no way to close them all now." Yeah, I think it's safe to say that he's pretty fucking blitzed out of his mind. Jesus Christ. So Richard decides to, whittle the whole thing down and say, "Can you tell us what exactly was the cult?" When I say they weren't really a cult, I mean that they were all in it for themselves. No one was brainwashed, but they were spiritual. I mean that they were all sharing these weird ideas. Every night they had these meetings where they discussed sacred geometry, the flower of life, Greek gods, and how Saturnalia was originally the same as Christmas, pagan shit, Norse shit, comparative religion from around the world, everything. Anyways, where was I? Lucy was getting jealous and Frank was getting manic. Again, I gotta say, when you have this much drugs floating in the system, it's pretty fucking expected. Now, the next big set of updates that actually happened in this scenario was basically an individual like Clay getting involved and talking about being part of this thing multiple times. Now, to classify this from the surface, this all looks very much like some kind of ARG. But once you start digging deep, you'll start to feel like you're getting involved in something fucking greater. Now, this is where they show a bunch of like symbols and like, whatnot related to all of this, right? Where they have things like the feeder, the mind spider, the pentacleon, the pygmalion, the comlink, the key, the numbers, the fucking numbers, Mason, Jesus Christ, paint symbols, now part of the Illuminati. And I mean, Frank basically implementing things like crop circles, 666 or die, fucking memes, dude. It is insane what X thinks I do. This is clearly getting to the point of complete psychosis. Now here's where they had an email from eye blue, eye black, eye... Man, I don't know, dude. At this point, I'm fucking losing it. We are now in official blackout. No more posting on as bulk. We have worked with our plants in the forum and done our jobs. There's enough doubt that this will probably die as soon as the Frank email is shut down in a week. So again, they're kind of admitting that they're on the 4chan forums and they've planted themselves, right? And again, the more and more you go into it, here's a post. Okay, fuckfaces. I've just defeated your hero Frank in an epic battle of stupid versus evil. I know this is just a shitty arg, and I was bored out of my mind, but I did it as Frank told me and painted the symbol on the mirror in blood and took a tab of acid. It was pretty awful, but the Frank thing didn't affect me nearly as much as coming on X and trying to type, which was the single most fucked up experience in my life. I spent a lot of time thinking about that monkey, and in retrospect, I still have no idea what it means. The conclusion, Frank is shitty arg. Painting symbols in blood and taking acid is a very bad idea. Taking acid and going on X is the single most craziest thing you can fucking do. I mean, Jesus Christ, it looks like a fucking monkey. That's what it looks like. But then there's more symbols of that same monkey being posted with the circular tail at the end. And then there's images from this livestream.com service where people are just sharing this live stream. And I guess this was rated by X at some point with a girl named Rabbit. On Rabbit's profile, he listed his favorite books as the Necronomicon and the Book of the Key and the Lock. I waited for him to get online and eventually did. That's when he told me some real information about the book that I could believe. Out of respect to Rabbit, I must respect his wishes that I do not disclose exactly what he told me about it, though if you continue to read, you may be able to figure it out for yourself. That's kind of a fucking weird cuck maneuver right there, Jesus Christ. Back out of here, Clay. There's also speculation about some of the members of DeviantArt known as the other lone gunmen who tried to expose the cult's activities and then mysteriously disappeared. I mean, I could die. The silver key to the Door of Dreams before I left, the other lone gunman from DeviantArt came into this chat explaining that he was at the party the night before a friend of his sister's was noticeably drunk and gave him a key-shaped flash drive that was silver in color. The person said it was a present for him. On it was 3 archived poll threads about various conspiracies along with a few files of an unrecognized extension. I gave him my email and asked him to attach the file so I can see this for myself. He never emailed me back. I had sent Frank a picture of this flash drive that Tolgum gave us, and he came into the chat immediately, posing as mysterious stranger, and called me out asking who has the flash drive. I sent him an email of. He could see the chat above, though, and called us fools for trying to hide who it was, when he could easily see who we were talking to, and then left. Before this happened, Tolgum was getting onto his DeviantArt account every few hours, then most of the info on his profile was deleted, and now he hasn't been online in 5 days as of writing this document. So he fucking disappeared. Jesus Christ. So apparently there's been like posts by the same person on like multiple like UK job websites where false prophet seeks idle hands for mysterious purpose. Attention wastrels, loafers, boobs, sluggards, idlers, simpletons, dolts and mooncalves, lunkheads and twits want to be part of the social elite. Huh. Do I now? But then here's an exact image of that key-shaped USB drive. I was one of the last people that had contact with the lone gunman. He came into the chat of X/radio right before he disappeared. And apparently this was like a set of images released alongside it, right? This was unlock the 9th gate, to look down without fear, to travel in jest, to read into it what you will, to learn the cosmic joke, to sit at death's table. Wait, what? So this lone gunman guy got all these pictures in the hard disk by the cult or the Illuminati or something? Now I'm getting even confused. Now even I'm getting confused too. I'm losing it. The last one mentions Lucy. Now that I think about it, this looks reminiscent of something Lucy did in the past. She was an artist, you know. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, the poem that somebody quoted on ATS, that was Lucy too, the one about the Book of Loki. So here's part 10, where life is just a game. Last time I heard about Christian, he'd gotten a girl pregnant. But that's not relevant to the story, is it? No, Tara, it's not. Let me give you everything else I would gather online about the activities of the cult of Saturn. To which this person finds a bunch of pages about Technicolor Dream Transmission, Sacred, the Cube of Saturn story, which we'll zoom in and read a little bit better. Typed some stuff for Frank and the Cube of Saturn a while back under the name of Sacred before Frank vanished mysteriously. He put 2 of them up, so I'm going to reblog them here. In my post, I described Binah, the Sephiroth of Understanding. Here's my personal DXM experience that led to my encounter with the sphere. And of course, you can go down to where you see the Cult of Saturn, Tuesday, a Skype group, as far as I remember. And then you've got the map of weird Twitter, which starts off with a mothership riffraff, somehow getting into ebooks, other Twitter accounts. I believe that might be a racial slur, Jesus Christ. Breaking the fourth wall, college students, official historian, pure joke writers, something even this fucking graph doesn't understand. And then you finally get down to it. Have you seen this silly looking blank? AKA wanted for shitposting, debauchery, subliminal advertising, impersonating a wizard, wearing a fedora. Now you've got entire character sheets of these cult leaders. So Frank is on the right and Marzipan is on the left, who's got a Cybermana skill of 9.5. While Frank has a cancelable word ability of 10. This is just insanity at this point. Holy fuck. Now this takes us to the last little bit of the trail of Deceit, the life is just a game section. Now, this is all getting a bit too much for Richard. There's a lot more on the internet about where this gets impossible to track. I was on BuzzFeed. Okay, now it's really getting too far. Somebody help this poor man. This is a Tumblr post. Let's be real. In a time before the internet, people didn't have more adventures and make more meaningful connections. They watched TV and listened to CDs. Before that, they listened to records and read magazines. Before that, they listened to the radio and read bad dime novels. Before they embroidered or some shit. People have been staying inside and ignoring other people for as long as there have been buildings. Ah, what a profound fucking thought right there. Now here's where they get the manifestos, right? I've been reading into some other stuff posted by the cult. They're really into fucking cubes. Okay, so this goes past 4chan at this point. This is just the cult now. So they've got this leader of hierarchy where they have the low key and the high key. They have the shapeshifter, the wise outsider, the clairvoyant, the writer, the artist, the rare gifted, the entertainer, the comedian, the shunned, opponent, royal pawn, fool, the hierophant, scientist, lecturer, white rabbit, which is the inducted. When Aleister Crowley entered the Golden Dawn, his impulse was to climb as quickly as possible to the top of the ladder. Shortly thereafter, the group dynamic collapsed. In spite of a strong hierarchy set up over an established period, the institution could not hold power. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Those drawn to non-mainstream ideologies will inherently seek to topple authority. The Cult of Saturn has a unique attribute towards institutional authority and aims, rather than to impose, a phony order over nature, to accommodate the natural gravity of occult forces. Therefore, the Cult of Saturn has no leader. Those who claim authority are the greatest pawns under the gravity of Saturn. We have no ideology, because ideology is a debasement of truth. However, we have the highest appreciation for symbolism. First and foremost, we worship the white rabbit, for this is a symbol of the grand truth. We followed it to get here, and we will continue to chase it, for the quest for truth is eternal. We gather around the truth like a caveman around fire, and the constellation we form, as we seek it, are sacred and eternal. Sounds like some fucking cult shit to me. Tara, the manifesto doesn't look like anything Frank would have made. I don't think Frank really believed in manifestos. Thanks for all the information, Rich. I guess there was something in me that kind of felt like I had something to confess with all of this. Kind of guilt in being part of a group that has been involved in something malicious. Now I really have no more clues as to what they were up to than I did before. They could have made most of this shit up, or some of it might be true. One thing that does stick with me is that all this talk of dreams and dimensions has brought me back to the weirdness of those days. I can't distinguish between what's real and what's a dream anymore. All these names in my head, the Black Hand, Blackstone, Black Lab, which I've just learned is an anagram of Balk, the company that Frank and Lucy used to advertise the original Idle Hands wanted ad. Now that I think about it, I remember Frank talking about Balk. But nobody ever even knew what the fuck he was talking about. It was like he was pretending to work for some other company the whole time. I'm over-analyzing synchronicities now, and various connections between different points in my life. Getting obsessed with words, I feel like I'm going a bit crazy over-analyzing and trying to understand the truth. It's when you get into this fucking self-analyzing rabbit hole is when things get really fucked up. Now, I want you to remember these 3x3 images. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned is the whole goal of these 3x3 images is you're supposed to take a proper 3x3 image and replace like squares out of it. Like you're supposed to replace 3 images out of it and share it in other threads. This causes people to like, I guess, increase their rate of synchronicity or discover more events or something of the sort. I still believe it's just a calling card for the Cult of Saturn, but that's kind of what you're getting out to. Here's the cult evidence. Since then, my paranormal enthusiasts have joined the game to explore the world and just solve its mysteries. Some of them have decided to fuck with the regulars and got really weird replies. Many have theorized that the very few players who refuse to leave even after so many years actually have some sort of crazy cult. Others have discovered that they have been monitored by them secretly. They can read whispers or watch other players without their own will from hidden places in the wall. Virtual reality worlds. Virtual reality is the gate of the dreams, the ghost in the machine at points, the silver key to the gate of dreams. It's all connected. The lone gunman was right. Life is just an ARG. Seriously, Tara, get some sleep. You're starting to sound like a crazy fucking person. Absolutely, I agree, Richard. You are right in this entire scenario. Now, this sort of leads us to the exact end, right? Which is how this cult of Saturn... we really saw a lot of the origin points, one man's, viewpoint from being into this cult and so on and so forth. Something that basically happened all the way back in 2012 and pretty much died there. 2012 to 2014 is when this whole story played out, and this is the only surviving accounts of that entire situation. And if you want to discover this, the information is right all here with every source that has been pointed out and everything brought into it. But what's really just weird about this whole situation is starting off this entire video from looking at a 4chan thread of where people actually went fucking crazy looking into synchronicity and realizing that very slowly 4chan at one point was, I guess, believed to be infiltrated by an entire fucking cult organization, which I guess was using these people to mind control them or something of the sort. Regardless, it was a very weird experiment, and there's not a lot of information that fucking exists. But ladies and gentlemen, that was the Voices of X. If this is weird, if this is all over the place, welcome to 4chan videos, because this is the weird fucking side of the internet. So if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am